Okay, day 2 of order of operations. All right, this is lesson 8, and similar objective. At the end of this, you should be able to say, I can follow the order of operations to simplify mathematical expressions. Okay, this is the same exact thing you had yesterday, so you do not have to write this whole thing down. Okay, just a reminder that expressions are mathematical statements without equal signs. Equations are mathematical sentences with equal signs. Okay? Order of operations. All you need to do for this section in terms of writing is write this. PE and then in parentheses MD and AS. You don't have to copy all this stuff down again. You did that yesterday. And then we're going to put a little arrow here that shows we go from left to right with those. Okay? So that's the important thing to remember from yesterday. Yesterday we talked about the order. We said parentheses are most important, then exponents, then multiplication and division from left to right, and then addition, subtraction from left to right. Okay? So, should move on a lot quicker today. Let's look at example 1, 2, and 3 here. So for example number 1, alright, I see now that I have parentheses. So parentheses are the most important. We have to do the work inside of those first. So inside of the parentheses here, I have addition. Okay, so I'm going to add these two numbers together and get 13. Okay, now you don't need to include the parentheses when you're done. Okay, but you really need to be careful with notation and stuff like that. Okay, we are multiplying by 5, so I'm going to drop that down. Okay, and then my last step is to go ahead and do that multiplication. All right, which will get me to 65. Okay. Example 2. We have subtraction and addition, but once again, the addition is inside of the parentheses. So we're going to do this first instead of going from left to right. All right, because the parentheses are number 1. All right. So that means I have 2 and that minus sign dropping down. All right. Inside of here, we're going to add and get 4. Okay. Now notice here that minus sign, all right, is dropping down. I don't need to put the parentheses, but if I did, you could do that too. It's still going to read 2 minus 4. Okay. And because we have different signs, we're going to subtract the two numbers and keep the sign of the bigger number. Okay. So again, we keep saying minus and negative are the same thing. It depends on what you're doing. Okay. I'm dropping this down as a minus sign, but when I go to combine these two numbers, you could do leave change if you want. But again, if you look at it as that 4 is negative because it has a minus sign in front of it, that 2 is positive, all right, we could combine them easily by saying different signs, subtract, and keep the sign the bigger. Okay, number 3 looks like a complete mess. All right, we have a set of parentheses here, and then inside of that, we have another set here and here. All right. Now, the one that's inside, that's simply just showing multiplication. Okay. So, we're going to go ahead and take care of that multiplication. 3 times 4 is 12. And I'm going to bring the rest of this problem down. 12 divided by 12. Okay. And 12 divided by 12 is 1. We're done with that problem. Okay. So, in the first 3 examples, what you see is how parentheses, all right, takes over order of operations. It's no longer multiplication first in example 1 here because there's parentheses. So then we have to do the work inside of those first. All right, 3 more examples to go and we're done. Looking at example 4. My eyes immediately go to the parentheses. I'm going to ignore all the other stuff right now. All right, I'm going to do my subtraction and we get 4. And now at this point, it's very, 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 very important to know how to include your notation. Either you use parentheses or you show multiplication with a dot. That is certainly not 54 as one number. All right, because right here, when I look at this statement, okay, I see 5 times the difference of 12 and 8. All right, so we have to show multiplication after we do that subtraction. Alright, so now at this point, I have addition and multiplication. This is like what we did yesterday without parentheses. We're going to do the multiplication first. I'm going to drop down the remainder, and then I'm going to go ahead and add. 24 is the correct answer. Okay, example 5. I have two sets of parentheses. Alright, they are separated by a plus sign, which means I could do both of these at the same time. So I have a 5 here and 13 here. I'm going to drop everything else down. I'm going to be really, really careful with my notation. So I have 8 plus. There's nothing in front of the parentheses besides for a plus sign, so I don't need to include the parentheses or show multiplication. I'm going to drop that 4 down. And the same is true for that minus sign. There's no number in front of the parentheses, so there's no multiplication to worry about in that case. Alright, now I have addition and subtraction. Remember, addition and subtraction are equally as important, so I'm going to work left to right with that. Alright, and I'm just going to drop all the rest of this stuff down. Okay, left to right again. Drop all the rest of that down. And finally, working left to right one last time to get 4. Yes, you should be showing all of this work. You should not be skipping steps. You should not be doing multiple steps in your head. Show your work. Number 6, last one. Once again, I see parentheses. That's immediately where I go. And that's 3. Alright, as I copy down the rest, I'm going to be very careful knowing that there is a dot here for multiplication. So I need either a parenthesis around the 3 or a dot showing multiplication. Again, that is not the number 23. Alright, so looking at this, I have subtraction, I have addition, I have multiplication. So multiplication comes next. That's 6. And then I'm going to drop everything else down. Continuing, subtraction and addition are equally as important, so I'm going to work left to right. There's 7 plus 6. And when I add that together, I end up with 13. Okay, so that is the end of this lesson. Alright, continuing order of operations. So at the end here, you have two choices. Either you know how to do something from this video, or you don't. Alright, you need to put it in sentences. Tell me what you can do or what you cannot do. Keep in mind, if you can't do something, you're going to write one of these things down or more. Alright, that shows how you're going to learn this stuff. Because again, you have a responsibility that when you know you don't know something, you have to do something extra to learn it. Alright, see you tomorrow in class.